So the number one way for sure, I would say movies.
Yes.
I remember, I don't know if I've told this story on the show before, but I was living in Amsterdam for a little while in my 20s, and I met this dude from Norway, and he was like completely fluent in English. Like he spoke as if he had grown up in New York, like
interesting,
the accent and everything. And I was like, have you like lived in the States? And he's like, I've never been to an English speaking country. And he wasn't even a good student. He didn't like study English in school or anything. He just watched movies, like movies constantly all the time, and that's how he learned his fluent English. So yeah, that works.
That's really interesting. And you see that definitely in in Norway and Scandinavia, different parts of Scandinavia, people seem fluent, basically 100% fluent. And that is amazing because it's really like being immersed in English in a sense. Your entertainment is immersed in English.
For sure. I just went sort of out of the box recently as far as movies go and watched an action movie called Den of Thieves, and I absolutely loved it. just a heist film with a bunch of shooting, and I appreciate the action genre as well. So, and I know a lot of listeners like action, so I recommend Den of Thieves.
I love it. So that is our number one recommendation. So that is number one. And number two is right in that same order is watching an English series or multiple series.
Totally.
And the reason I like this personally is that you can, like I said before, you can kind of get invested in the story and the characters over a longer period of time. So I feel like your fluency kind of carries out over time. So it becomes a bit of a project to come back to the show all the time and spread it out in a sense, rather than just 2 hours of intense immersion. It's over weeks.
True. Yeah. And it's easier to consume if it's like a 20-minute sitcom like The Good Place or something older like Cheers or Frasier. I still like those old ones too. And so it's easy to fit in, like even on a lunch break, you could watch an episode. But then also with these, prestige television sort of series, like the one I mentioned, The Leftovers, or like the very first one, The Sopranos, stuff like that, you get to know these characters and how they talk, and they do have like sort of catchphrases or quirky things that they say all the time. And so I think this little bit of repetition, along with getting really comfortable with how they talk, the speed, the accent, and you just understand more and more in every episode. Yeah. And you do forget you're learning at all because you get so, like you said, like invested in the story and what's happening.
That's so true. That's so true, Jessica. I mean, I know a lot of people like Friends, and that's great. Yeah. It's awesome if you guys like Friends. We love to recommend other options to kind of branch out from that for sure. I know on another episode, we mentioned The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. That is
Oh
one.
my gosh.
Yep.
I love it. I just finished watching a British one called The Flowers, which is also amazing. Olivia Colman is in it. She won Best Actress for The Favorite. She won the Oscar this year. And she can do comedy, drama, everything. And this is, I would say, a dramedy. It's a mixture of comedy and drama. So The Flowers, it's awesome.
It's one that I like is The Good Doctor. So the acting is not amazing. I feel like despite what you just said, Jessica, about the acting award that the person won, I almost feel like with so many kind of series out there now, I feel like the acting is maybe not as good, but maybe kind of the storylines are interesting. They're kind of, there's a certain quality to a lot of shows, and it's not always in the acting. Sometimes it is though, but I like The Good Doctor. So it's a story of a doctor that has autism. Really interesting story. So that's one that I would recommend to you guys.
Yeah, I think because The Good Doctor's a network show, right? So we're talking like ABC, NBC. One of those.
Yeah, that's right. So, but you are definitely you're coming back every week and you're following a storyline. So it's essentially the same thing. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
And then, so those are the top two for sure. And I really like the sixth one that he gave where you make yourself speak out loud every day. You have to, listening is just half of it, right? You have to take what you watched, what you listened to, and use it somehow, right? So definitely, find a website, like just Google conversation starters. And there's so many websites, like 250 conversation topics, more than enough, right? For you to just